In the last week of June, in the year 1553, a 15-year-old boy lay in a room at Greenwich Palace on the south bank of the Thames and could no longer lie on his side. His legs had swollen. His body had swollen. When he coughed, and he coughed constantly, what came up was streaked black and green, and it carried a smell, the men in the room wrote down, because they wanted to remember it exactly. His skin had begun to break into sores. His fingernails were loosening. Some of his hair had come away. This was the King of England, Edward VI. The only legitimate son Henry VIII managed to raise past infancy. The entire point, in a sense, of 6 marriages and a broken church. The story you have been told about how he died is that he simply faded. A frail, bookish, sickly boy, worn down by consumption, slipping quietly out of a life he had always been too weak to hold. A gentle wasting. A candle going out. That is the legend. The record tells a different story. The record describes something fast, something violent, something a surgeon confirmed with a blade after the boy was dead. When they opened his chest, what they found inside him was worse than anyone in that room had guessed. This is what the body says. The subject is male. Biological age at death, 15 years and just under 9 months. Born the 12th of October, 1537, at Hampton Court Palace. Died the 6th of July, 1553, at the Palace of Placentia in Greenwich, in the evening between 8 and 9 o'clock. Preservation of the record. Unusually good, because this was a king, and kings are watched. We have ambassadors' dispatches, physicians' notes, and a post-mortem examination performed by a royal surgeon within days of death. Cause of death, per the historical record, consumption. Tuberculosis, the slow disease of the lungs that the 16th century knew well and feared quietly. What we are doing today is rebuilding the autopsy from the body up. The case file has said tuberculosis for most of 5 centuries. The body has been saying something more specific and more disturbing the entire time. Cause of death, mechanism, manner, time. The mystery here is already on the record. It is in the dispatches. It is in the sputum. It is in the 2 things the surgeon found in his lungs. Start with the story everyone inherited. Edward was the son who arrived last and mattered most. His mother, Jane Seymour, died 12 days after giving birth to him of the complications of that birth. From his first 2 weeks of life, this child carried a particular weight. He was the male heir his father had torn the country apart to secure. He was guarded, physicked, wrapped, and watched more closely than any child in England. His father died when Edward was 9. The boy became king on the 28th of January, 1547, a crown resting on a child still too young to shave. Real power went first to his uncle, Edward Seymour, the Duke of Somerset, and then, after Somerset was beheaded in January of 1552, to John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland. The story that grew up around the boy king was the story of Fragility, a studious, pale Protestant prince, clever, cold, doomed. The kind of child, the narrative goes, who was always going to die young, because he was simply built too thin for the world. The Venetian ambassador reported consumption. The English physicians at the end spoke of a disease of the lungs. Consumption fit the picture everyone already had of him. It was tidy. It was sad. It confirmed what they believed. There was also a second story, and it started the moment he stopped breathing. Poison. The whisper was that Northumberland, desperate to hold power, had poisoned the young king to buy time. time to put his own daughter-in-law, Jane Grey, on the throne. The rumor was immediate, it was durable, and it was fed by exactly the symptoms I described at the start: swelling, sores, falling hair and nails. Those are the folk signatures of a poisoning, and the public read them that way for centuries. Two stories, a gentle consumption or a royal murder. Hold both in your head, because the body agrees with neither of them cleanly. There is one fact in the record that breaks the frail boy story before we even reach the lungs. And once it breaks, the whole gentle wasting narrative goes with it. Edward was not a sickly child. This is the detail the doomed prince legend cannot survive. For most of his 15 years, this boy was, by every account we have, healthy and physically active. He rode, he hunted, he ran at the ring in the tilt yard. He was drilled in the athletic culture of a Tudor prince, and he kept up with it. As late as the autumn of 1552, foreign observers described a boy in reasonable health. Whatever took Edward VI, it did not stalk him from the cradle. It arrived. And we can date almost exactly when, in April of 1552, roughly 14 months before his death, Edward fell acutely ill with a rash. His own journal, which he kept himself, records it. The illness was measles. Some accounts add smallpox on top of it, the two possibly running together. And this is the part that matters forensically. He recovered, fully. By the middle of that year, he was back to his letters and his writing, apparently restored. The measles came, and the measles went, and everyone exhaled. That recovery is the trap. Because we now understand something about measles that the 16th century had no way to know. Measles does more than pass through the body and leave. In the weeks and months after the rash fades, measles erases part of the immune system's memory. The antibodies the body had painstakingly built against other infections over years are wiped down. Immunologists call it immune amnesia. A child who recovers from measles walks away looking healthy and is, underneath, immunologically stripped, defenseless against threats the body had already learned to fight. So the boy who looked recovered in the summer of 1552 was not recovered. He was exposed. The following winter, the door the measles had opened let something in. Around the start of 1553, Edward developed a fever and a cough. At first it looked survivable. Through the spring he rallied and relapsed and rallied again. In early April he was well enough to take the air. By the 7th of May his doctors believed his recovery was assured. They were wrong. The illness came back harder each time it returned, and by June the physicians had stopped pretending. Now the body starts speaking in the language of a specific disease, and it is a violent one. The imperial ambassador, Jean Chaif, kept a running record of the symptoms, and his dispatches are the closest thing we have to a bedside chart. He reported that the king suffered greatly when the fever was on him, above all from difficulty drawing breath. He reported on the 11th of June that the matter Edward brought up from his lungs was colored sometimes a greenish yellow, sometimes black, and sometimes pink, like blood. Read that the way a pathologist reads it. Sputum that is green and yellow is purulent. It is full of the debris of a bacterial infection, of pus. Sputum that is black and foul-smelling points to tissue that is dying and rotting inside the chest. Sputum streaked pink is blood from vessels the infection has eaten through. This is a long way from the thin, dry, blood-flecked cough of classic consumption. This is the productive, purulent, putrid cough of a lung that is suppurating, a lung filling with pus and beginning to necrotize. His physicians, working with 16th century language, arrived at their own version of the same reading. They described a suppurating tumor of the lung, strip the period vocabulary away, and what they meant was an abscess, a pocket of infection and dead tissue walled up inside the chest. Then the rest of the body began to follow the lungs down. His legs swelled so badly he had to be kept flat on his back. The swelling reached his head. Sores broke out across his skin, some of them likely pressure sores from a body that could no longer move itself, some the surface signs of a body being poisoned from within by its own infection. His fingernails loosened. His hair came away. To the people in that room, watching a 15-year-old boy fall apart in real time, it looked like the end of the world. In a dynastic sense, it was. I had a patient once who followed this arc, and I have never quite shaken it. A boy of 16 in a county hospital in the Willamette Valley of Oregon in the winter of 1991. He had come through what everyone took for an ordinary bad flu. He got better. 2 weeks later, he was back, burning with fever, coughing up something that had gone from yellow to a color nobody wanted to name, his lower legs swelling as his kidneys began to give out. What had actually happened was that the viral illness had cleared the way for a bacterial pneumonia that seeded his blood. He was young. He was strong. His strength worked against him. A healthy young body with a suppurating lung and an infection loose in the bloodstream can decline faster than an old one, because the young body throws everything it has at the fight and burns through its reserves in days. I signed his certificate 400 years and an ocean away from Greenwich, and the two files could have been read from the same page. There is one more figure at that bedside, and she is where the poison story gets its fuel. As the physicians ran out of options, a woman was brought to the king from outside the royal medical circle. An Italian writer of the period, Giulio Raviglio Rosso, recorded her. She was a stranger to the royal doctors. She came forward promising a cure where they had failed. By his account, she was admitted despite their protests, and her remedies made him worse. His limbs swelled further under her care. What she gave him is unknown. It has been suggested, and it can only be a suggestion, that her preparations contained arsenic or other metals, substances used in period medicine that can produce swelling, skin breakdown, and the loss of hair and nails. If that is true, then some of the most lurid signs on Edward's body in his final days, the very signs that convinced the public he had been murdered, may have been the side effects of a desperate, worthless treatment given to a boy who was already dying. This was not poison in the sense of a plot. It was poison in the sense of medicine that harmed. That distinction is the whole case. We will come back to it. Then Edward died, on the evening of the 6th of July, and for the first time the argument could be settled by the only witness that mattered, his own chest. A royal surgeon opened the body after death. This is the autopsy at the center of the case, and its finding is brief and terrible. Inside the king's lungs were 2 large ulcers. The word the period used was putrefied. 2 great putrefied ulcers. In plain modern terms, 2 substantial cavities of dead, rotting, infected lung tissue. Abscesses. The surgeon concluded that the king had died of a disease of the lungs, and on the narrow question of which organ had failed, he was exactly right. Those 2 cavities are the physical confirmation of everything the sputum had been announcing for weeks. This was focal, destructive, suppurative disease. Not a diffuse, slow consumption spread thinly through the lung fields, but 2 pockets where the lung had been eaten, hollow. If reading bodies the record gave up on and filed under the wrong cause is the kind of work you want more of, The subscribe button is where you say so. There is another case file closing soon. Which reading is correct? Here, I have to be honest about where the evidence actually sits, because two serious modern readings compete, and both are defensible. The first reading keeps tuberculosis, but changes the story of how it took him. In 2001, 3 physicians, Grace Holmes, Frederick Holmes, and Julia McMorrow, published an analysis of Edward's death in the New England Journal of Medicine. Their argument runs through the measles. Tuberculosis was endemic in that world, and Edward may well have carried a quiet, contained tubercular infection, the way millions of people did and do, held in check by the immune system. Then the measles of 1552 stripped that immune system down. The contained infection, released, broke into rapidly progressive disease that took him in months. In that reading, the measles is the trigger, and tuberculosis is the gun. The second reading, argued by Edward's modern biographer Jennifer Loach, drops tuberculosis as the primary agent altogether. In her account, the acute illness of 1553 was an acute bacterial pneumonia, a bilateral bronchopneumonia that progressed to a suppurating infection and lung abscesses, then to septicemia, blood poisoning, and finally to kidney failure. That sequence explains the purulent black sputum, the 2 cavities, the swelling of the legs as the kidneys failed, and the speed. It explains the death entirely through infection. The body favors one of them. The tempo and the findings, taken together, point hardest at an acute, suppurative process. Classic tuberculosis in a 15-year-old is usually a grinding decline over many months to years, with a characteristic pattern. What the dispatches describe is faster and more purulent than that, and the 2 discrete abscesses at post-mortem are the signature of a focal bacterial suppuration, more than of typical diffuse consumption. Whether a smoldering tubercular seed was the thing that ignited, as the 2001 paper argues, or whether an ordinary bacterial pneumonia found an undefended chest, the mechanism at the end is the same. His lungs suppurated. The infection entered his blood. His kidneys failed. The measles of 1552 is the event that left a 15-year-old body unable to stop any of it. And the poison. I have to sign a finding on the poison, because it is the loudest thing the public ever believed about this death, and it deserves a straight answer. There is no evidence Edward VI was murdered. Every gruesome sign that fed the poisoning rumor has a medical home. The swelling is renal failure. The sores are pressure ulcers and the surface expression of sepsis. The loss of hair and nails is what a body does when it has been catastrophically ill for months and its systems are shutting down. As for the 2 ulcers in the lungs, those are the signature of infection, not of any poison. Northumberland had every political motive in the world to want Edward alive, long enough to change the succession. A dead king that summer was a disaster for him. It was the opposite of a plan. The woman with her potions is the closest thing to a poisoner in this story, and even she falls short of it. If her remedies contained arsenic and worsened his final days, that is a possible iatrogenic insult, harm caused by treatment. The disease was already killing him before she arrived. She was a last, useless cruelty, layered on top of a death that was already certain. I closed a file not long ago on a Tudor queen whose entirely natural death, from a malignancy in the chest, was read as poison by an ambassador who had every reason to want it to be poison. This is the same shape, 1 generation on. A political court, a convenient corpse, and a set of symptoms the age had no tools to read. The difference is that this time the poison rumor has a grain of truth buried in it, in the form of a woman and a cup. And it is still not murder. This is the finding. Cause of death: suppurative bacterial pneumonia. A bilateral bronchopneumonia that progressed to lung abscesses, the two putrefied cavities the surgeon found, with secondary septicemia and terminal kidney failure. Tuberculosis stays on the file as a possible underlying seed the measles set loose, and the honest classification names it as a contributor. But the acute, purulent, focal disease that took his life is a suppurative pneumonia. Mechanism of death: respiratory failure and overwhelming infection. The lungs were destroyed in two places and could no longer do their work. The infection spread into the bloodstream. The kidneys shut down behind it. The immediate physiological event was the collapse of a body poisoned by its own sepsis. Manner of death: natural. The disease came from no human hand. The woman's remedies, if they contained what has been suggested, were an aggravating factor and not a cause, and the evidence for homicide is simply absent. Time of death: the evening of the 6th of July, 1553, between the 8th and 9th hour. There is a refile to enter, though it is a refile of the cause, not the manner. The manner was always natural. History filed this death under consumption, a slow, romantic wasting that suited the legend of a frail and doomed boy king. The body corrects the legend on every point. He was healthy. His defenses were stripped by one childhood infection, and he was taken, fast, by a second one his body should have survived. There is a particular cruelty in the arithmetic of this life, and the body carries all of it. Edward VI entered the world and cost his mother her life within 12 days. He was the answer to his father's entire obsession. The male heir, secured at the price of 2 annulments, 2 beheaded queens, a severed church, and a generation of blood. Everything Henry VIII broke, he broke to arrive at this one boy. And this one boy was undone by a rash in the spring of his 14th year. A rash that looked like nothing, that everyone survived, that emptied his defenses and walked away. What his father's marriages could not prevent, and what no poisoner needed to arrange. A common childhood illness accomplished on its own. He died before he was old enough to father a child. The crown fell to a cousin for 9 days, and then to his half-sister Mary, and the direct line of Tudor kings ended in the lungs of a 15-year-old. Cause of death: suppurative pneumonia. Mechanism: respiratory failure and sepsis. Manner: natural. The record called it a gentle fading for 500 years. There was nothing gentle about it. The body held the truth the whole time. 2 ulcers in the chest, and a record written in black on every cloth they lifted from his mouth. It was waiting for someone to read it as a case file, instead of a legend. We finally did. If a 15-year-old came to you with 2 putrefied abscesses in his lungs, black purulent sputum, failing kidneys, and a documented measles infection 14 months earlier that he had seemingly recovered from, would you sign the underlying cause as tuberculosis set loose, or as an ordinary pneumonia that found an undefended chest? Tell me which way you would write it and why. I read every comment. Thanks for watching.